Hi, I'm Keith Holland from Keith Holland Guitars, and we're discussing what goes into a custom guitar. You'll notice here we have a Keith Holland custom hanging up here. It's one of my aged guitars, and you see it has a unique headstock, and that's the idea behind getting a custom guitar. You want to have the uniqueness of it come through. So the headstock, I have my Flying S on here and the Keith Holland decal to set it apart from other instruments, other builders that may be building their own guitars. But in every way, we have a vintage style guitar here, a light finish. What I mean by that is a thin finish, nitrocellulose on this body. Very important to put the right finish on there to make it correct. You notice here it's got a little hot rodded electronics here. It's got a switch on here. What that does is that turns on the neck pickup whenever you want it on. So you have a normal 5-position switch there that goes through the first pickup, those 2 pickups, that pickup, those 2, and that pickup. Well, what you can't get in that combination with the 5 ways, you can't get all 3 pickups on, and you can't get the 2 outside pickups on together. By switching on that pickup, that neck pickup, when you go back to the bridge position, now you get the 2 outside pickups on. In that position where you have these 2, when you flick that on, then it gets all 3 pickups on. So you have every combination simply available to you there. So that's a very, very popular thing to do on a custom guitar. Also, I have this claw in here. I won't go into large detail on what that does, but what it does for you is it keeps the tremolo from moving when you bend a string. And it's just a unique product that we put, something like you put on a custom guitar that you wouldn't get on a normal production instrument. This has a very smooth, light finish on the back of the neck, which makes it easy to move your hand around on it. These are important things on a custom guitar. As we look up on the wall here, we have explanations of what goes into a custom instrument and why it's the components that are important on a guitar, and what happens when you actually decide on those components and how it can affect that guitar as you build it. Let's start up here with the tuners. The tuning gears now are more than just, there's a lot of tuning gears out there, and they all work to a certain extent. And that may not be the most important thing, is how they stay in tune. It is an important thing, I'm not discounting that, but there are issues with tone as well that are even more severe that you'll notice when you select your tuners. A heavy tuning gear will affect tone differently than a lightweight gear would. So these are what you call low mass or lightweight gears. And then on other guitars you might find a higher mass gear where the tone is different. I think that more people on a vintage style guitar would want a lighter tuner. It is more typical of what you would find on a vintage instrument, and it's important to the tone of the instrument to retain that vintage tone. Once you put a heavier gear on there, the tone changes. Whether it's positive or negative, that's up to you, but an experienced person, as myself, who has built a lot of custom guitars or modified a lot of guitars over the years, can explain those differences to you, and that's part of the process of ordering a custom instrument. Up here, the nut material, this is the nut, can affect a lot of issues. Tuning is one thing. Also the tone of the instrument. The durability of the nut is important, so the material can establish that. Also the material can affect sustain and overall tone of the instrument, and that's where an experienced builder can help you as well. Fret size is important to people for feel and for tone, and I would say that commonly medium-sized fret is the most popular. Small frets to some people and large frets to others can be very subjective, and it's something that you learn, and it's something you talk about when you build a custom guitar. Neck shapes. Now, we were discussing earlier how important it is the neck shape to the player. And this is why I have a lot of guitars up here on the wall as examples, because they all have different necks on them. There's V shapes, round shapes, large boat shapes, small, very tiny shapes like on this Charvel guitar I showed you earlier. These are important to selecting your guitar because you want it to fit your hand. You want it to feel right when you play it. Many times I will build a guitar for a player who has a guitar that he especially likes the neck on. Sometimes it's even an acoustic guitar, and actually that happens quite often where they really like the shape of their acoustic guitar, they're getting their really good electric guitar, and they want the neck to be the same. So that's very important as well. Maybe the most important to overall feel of the instrument. Okay, let's talk about woods and finishes. Woods are important. They can really affect tone greatly, and the weight of the instrument is pretty much established by the species of the wood. So, you know, we have ashes and alders and mahoganies and koas and so on and so forth. They all have their very unique tone and feel. Let's say feel as far as weight goes. So the tone of the instrument is really, the overall tone of the instrument is initially established by the body width, so that's very important in selecting the right body. Also aesthetically, it can be an important part. And so when building a custom guitar, we want to get a balance between aesthetics and tone. And these are important areas to discuss. We put the finish on there, it can greatly affect the tone. The actual finish itself, whether it's nitrocellulose, polyurethane, those are quite different as far as tone goes. One of them is a heavier, thicker finish. It takes the wood of the instrument a little bit away from the woody tone of the instrument and establishes a different idea as far as the tone goes, or a different result. Now with a nitrocellulose finish like is on this, a thin finish, you get more of a woody tone, more of a vintage feel, and that's maybe a more popular way to go for most people who want that nitro finish on their custom instrument. So, moving on to pickups. Now, we just talked about the wood that goes in the guitar. It's important to come up with the right pickup combination as far as what the player is looking for. And this is a discussion that you have with your builder. That's very important. When we talk about the body, at the same time we have to talk about the pickups so that we get the right combination of weight, finish, feel, and the tone of the instrument. And the pickups will go along with that. So depending on what you are looking for, it's important to discuss this with your builder to come up with the right combination. Many times this is a difficult part of it. Many times you will find that maybe on the first time you go through that and the guitar is done, maybe the pickups aren't quite doing it for you, and sometimes you have to change those out, and that's part of having a custom guitar, which is kind of a cool thing. Hardware, another important tone thing. It's more than just the look and the feel of the instrument. The hardware is very, very important. We talked about the tuners. It's the same thing with the bridge. Probably, in my opinion, lots of times when people come to me with their production instruments and they come to me and they say, you know, I don't really like my tone of this instrument. And if I don't look at the bridge, I'm doing them a disservice. In the past, maybe, or with a lot of people, they'll look at the pickups and they'll go, well, I need to change your pickups out. But first thing I look at is the bridge. Make sure that it's a good, high-quality bridge. Everything's right by it as far as how the string rests maybe on the saddle or the material of the bridge, because this can greatly affect tone. You see this one has hardened steel saddles. That may be important, and I believe it is very important on a vintage guitar to have those. This one also has a hardened steel block cut out of a piece of steel. That's important too. You don't want a pot metal or zinc composite type block on the back of that bridge. You want a hardened steel block. So these are very important issues as far as tone goes. And then secondly, of course, it has to be functional, and that's important as well. In this case, we have a tremolo. It needs to function correctly. Okay, electronics. We talked about the pickups. Now, the electronics are what's behind this pickguard here, or in the case of some guitars, back here. So, but they're basically potentiometers, switch, jack here, and sometimes preamps. You heard me talk earlier about a preamp up here on this guitar. If we pan up there, you can see the switch that's right there. On the back of this guitar is a little battery box with a 9-volt battery in it. And so that is a preamp that boosts the output of the entire guitar, adding a little more versatility to the instrument. So electronics are important too. The selection of the potentiometers, the actual capacitors that may be attached to the potentiometers to dictate tone, roll off, the actual preamp, the selection of the preamp. The switch has to be a good one. It has to be very positive. The jack has to be a good one. It has to be one that won't wear out. That's always, as it moves, it's not wearing it out and potentially shorting out here and there. So the selection of the electronics may not be, it's something that you can always add and subtract from, but it's important to get good quality components because it does establish and add to and subtract from the tone. So these are important issues. So that's what goes into the custom guitar, and I hope that you understand that how or why we do this based on what we've talked about here, because these are really the reasons why you get a custom guitar, more than just getting a custom guitar to spend money and have a good one around. When people come into my store and they pick up these guitars and they start playing them, they go, wow, this doesn't feel, sound, or react anything like my guitar at home that I paid $1,500 for. And then we go through this whole process of telling them what I told you now, why that is, and how important all these issues are that go into a guitar. And that's why we build custom guitars. Thank you.